The other obvious thing is race. I mean, and I don't want to pull the race card, but people like to vote for people that they feel related to, and I think that's another really difficult.
So you just heard Harrisburg's treasurer, Dan Miller, explain one of the reasons why he believes he did not win the race to become Harrisburg's next mayor. So, as you know, election day was yesterday. It was a big day. The Harrisburg mayoral race was something huge that a lot of people were watching across central Pennsylvania, even really across the Commonwealth, to see who would become the mayor of Harrisburg for the next 4 years, the capital city of the Keystone State. But really, I mean, both candidates, Mayor Wanda Williams and Harrisburg Treasurer Dan Miller, they were really running on fixing up a lot of the same issues, public safety being one, revitalizing the downtown area of Harrisburg. That was another thing. Now, Dan Miller did lose in the primary election. The incumbent Mayor Wanda Williams, she did win the primary. Now, that is what triggered Dan to run on the Republican ticket as a Democrat. He did say, though, that he's a lifelong Democrat. He will forever remain a Democrat, even though he was on the Republican ticket. And he did say it would be challenging to win on the Republican ticket as a Democrat because, as you know, Harrisburg is really just a Democrat stronghold. It really is a stronghold for the region. But I want you to go ahead and take another listen to what he had to say when I asked him more about why he thinks he lost the election to become Harrisburg's next mayor.
The other obvious thing is race. I mean, and I don't want to pull the race card, but people like to vote for people that they feel related to, and I think that's another really difficult.
So just wanted to make sure you heard it again for those of you just now joining us. So CBS 21's Andrew Klein, he has been out and about talking to voters about this. Andrew even spoke to Dan Miller today about this, and he doubled down about what he said yesterday.
Yeah, TJ, he did. He reiterated that fact. Now, I do want to make sure we note that, that wasn't the first thing he said. He did say running as a Republican, or running as a Democrat on the Republican ticket was, really a huge factor because it was so hard to get people to overcome that letter next to his name, the letter R. But when I asked him if he thought that was, the biggest thing, he then went into that same second point of, race did play a role in this whole thing. He said you have to be naive to say that it didn't play a role in this whole thing. So you're right. He did kind of double down on that, reiterated that fact that he said that last night right after conceding. So not something that he, is shying away from right now when he looks back at what happened in this election.
Yeah, and Andrew, I mean, you're taking a look at one of his big announcements when he was announcing that he would be running on the Republican ticket as a Democrat right there. That's some video from that day. And Dan, before Election Day, he never publicly stated to any media outlet, at least any local media outlet, that, race would play a factor. He didn't publicly say that to anyone. He just publicly said that running as a Democrat on the Republican ticket would be something that would be hard for him to overcome. And we did get a lot of comments about this as well on our Facebook page. When I initially asked Dan about this yesterday, I asked him, what was a major reason? And Andrew, like your interview with him today, he mentioned that, running on the Republican ticket as a Democrat, but I could tell he wanted to say something else. So that's what prompted me to even ask him again, so you think that was the only issue? And then that's when he brought that into play. So you're taking a look at some of the comments on our Facebook page about what you all had to say. And Andrew, you also have been out on the streets talking to people too. So what were you hearing?
Yeah, so I showed that clip to a number of people. I know that was some of the bureau that we've shown throughout this 21 Next so far is me showing people that clip yesterday because I wanted to know what people think if they had not heard it, if they had heard it. So nobody that I showed that clip to had heard that he said that. But when I told them that he said that, there's a lot of similar reactions. One guy said it was kind of soft to play the race card now. Another called him a sore loser after hearing this. So it's very surprising that he said it now to me after the. I mean, I guess I don't think he would have said that at any point even if he was thinking it. Interesting that he says it last night right after the election and never before. But people that I spoke with today did not back him up, which was another interesting factor of it. And one person even told me, I vote on the issues that I, take into my heart. I don't just look at a candidate or a color or a letter or anything like that. You need to make your own decisions. So people did not back him up when he said that, but I do think it was interesting that he then reiterated that fact that he feels that that is the case. That is one of the big reasons why he lost this race.
Yeah, and then even just looking at the comments too, a lot of people, like you said, they didn't hear that he said that, so they really wanted to hear that clip. So let's go ahead and pull up these comments again, and I'm looking at the results too, because Mayor Wanda Williams, she did have a good lead on Miller. It wasn't a blowout. It was a double-digit lead. It was about maybe a 13-14% lead. Let's see, it was maybe 13-14%. I'm trying to get a specific number. But like I said, it was not a blowout. But early on, Dan, in the night around 9:30, he kind of figured that he would not win the election. Andrew, what were you going to say?
Well, he also told me what I think was something I think was interesting was that the turnout was so large, is what he said. He said, he told me that the turnout was about 50% more people than they expected, and he says the judicial races played a big role in that, in everything that President Trump has said about the retention or the non-retention, and he says people wanted to be a part of all of these things, and he also credited that as a factor of why he lost. He didn't emphasize it the same way he emphasized him running on the Republican ticket or the race aspect of it, but he did bring that up of more people wanted to get out and vote. I don't know if that's even something he could have controlled, because there are so many people who see something that the president says, and either will kind of back him up or will decide they don't want to back him up at all, and kind of won't really go anywhere from there.
Yeah, I mean, even when I was at the polls yesterday, I was talking to poll workers. They did say that they definitely saw a significant increase since the primaries of people coming out to vote. I mean, you have to think about it. Like, really, there were so many voters up for grabs in this election with only two candidates on the ballot for Harrisburg mayor, but yet there were around like 4 candidates running in the primary. So there was over 1,000 people who these people were trying to appeal to, voters that they were trying to really.
All the Lamont Jones voters.
Yeah, exactly. All the Lamont Jones, he had over 1,000 voters vote for him. And we do know Dan Miller, he was door knocking in Allison Hill, really trying to sway some of those voters, even because that is a region where Mayor Wanda Williams, as a stronghold, is Allison Hill.
Right. And, we know Dan Miller went around. I actually would probably say I think I might have seen more Dan Miller signs. I didn't count or anything, but there were a lot of people that did support Dan Miller. But when it came down to it, it was very interesting because we always thought that the voters who didn't vote for either of them in the primary were going to be some of the most important ones. Those 1,000 voters for Lamont Jones were going to be so vital. I would love to see what the percentage of Lamont Jones voters, which way they went. Presumably, you would have to expect, because Wanda Williams won by a decent margin, that they probably went that route. But why?
Yeah, and I do want to point out, when I was at Dan's campaign event, there was a lady I spoke to who was a Lamont Jones voter, and Dan did end up getting her vote. However, of course, we know Mayor Wanda Williams did end up winning the election, so it would be easy to assume that she did win a majority of those voters there. But in that video that you saw from his rally there, I do want to point out, it was a pretty mixed race crowd there as well. Just going back to that point of what he said about race in this election, there was some Black people in the audience. There was also some white people in the audience. So it was pretty mixed race. So it's interesting to hear him bring up that point that he does believe in. But overall, we're getting a lot of comments about this. We still want you to weigh in about this, about what he said, and just overall about this election in general. Are you happy with the results? Not happy with the results? And what do you also think about what he said too? Andrew, anything else before we close out?
Yes, so I actually do want to get to that point of, are people excited? Are people worried? When I spoke to people earlier today, that was also a mixed bag. Now, I had one gentleman who said she has been doing a really good job, and everything she wants to do, she can't do that in just 4 years, so she needs another 4. But then I had a woman who I spoke with today. She said she's lived in Harrisburg for 40 years, and I asked her, what are your hopes for the next 4 years with Mayor Williams now winning another 4 years? And she said the first 4 words out of her mouth were, I have no hope. And I think that is super interesting to hear. She said she's seen mayors and she has never been able to fully see the change that these mayors want to commit to in Harrisburg. And I asked her, you know, I see so many people on social media saying, I will stay in my home because it is worth it. And she agreed with that. She said, you know, this is my home. I live here. And when it comes to change specifically, she said that comes from the bottom up. Like if you have a problem, you're probably not going straight to the mayor. So no matter who the mayor is, you're more likely than not going straight to the mayor's office with a problem. You're going to the other smaller, district, region, something like that, where you're not just jumping straight to the top. So I think that was another interesting thing where, she said she is a super voter, is what she told me. She has voted in almost every I think she said she missed one primary since she was 18 years old, and she votes in everything. So to her, while she doesn't have hope in Mayor Williams specifically, she also feels like there was a lot of hope she could have in other parts of the city or the county that also, had to have people vote on yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. The fact that, she hasn't missed an election. She said maybe one time she missed an election. So it's always important to just do your civic duty and go out and vote. We really did see democracy take place yesterday. It's a powerful process. And, if you have that right, go out, vote, do what you need to do. But yeah, we do know that Mayor Wanda Williams, she will be taking a break, she said, for the rest of the week. She said she'll be back in office next week. So just a lot to come as she is now going to enter in another 4-year term. But of course, we will continue to have more coverage on her term as mayor, as well as these other local races that is taking place throughout central Pennsylvania. So make sure you stay locked in with CBS 21 for everything you need to know. And thank you for watching 21 Next.